Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, haunted by a conversation from last week? Maybe it was just a comment, something small, maybe even meaningless, but your brain won't let it go. It loops the moment again and again like a broken record. Or maybe it's a message you sent that hasn't been answered. Hours pass, days even, and your mind? It's a theater of worst-case scenarios playing on repeat. That is overthinking. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shout. It whispers, quietly, persistently, until your peace of mind is gone. It's not loud like a panic attack. It's more like a slow drip of anxiety that wears you down bit by bit. And here's the thing. If you've ever experienced that, you're not alone. In today's world, overthinking is almost a badge of honor. We mistake it for being careful, thorough, responsible. But the truth, overthinking is one of the most exhausting habits we can fall into. It steals our energy, clouds our decisions, and quietly convinces us that we're solving problems when we're actually just digging deeper into confusion. The ancient Stoics had a name for this. They called it unnecessary thinking. That's right. This isn't just a modern problem. People have been wrestling with this mental fog for thousands of years. But unlike us, they weren't content to let it run wild. They studied it, they dissected it, and most importantly, they learned how to stop it. You see, the Stoics believed that the mind is like a garden. It's a beautiful space, full of potential, but only if you tend to it. If you don't actively choose what you plant, weeds will take over. And in our minds, those weeds come in the form of worry, regret, fear. Left unchecked, they grow fast. They tangle your thoughts. They choke out your clarity until all that's left is noise. Now, I want to ask you something personal. When was the last time you truly felt calm, not distracted, not numbing yourself with screens or scrolling, but deeply, peacefully calm? Because if it's been a while, you're not broken. You're just caught in the same storm that most of us are. The good news is, there's a way out, and that's what this video is about. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 7 timeless Stoic techniques that can help you take back control of your thoughts. These aren't vague ideas or feel-good slogans. They're practical, tested principles used by some of the most resilient minds in history, from Roman emperors to modern leaders. People who faced real hardship and still found clarity, focus, and inner strength. We'll learn how to tell the difference between what you can control and what you can't. We'll talk about action, why doing something even small is more powerful than thinking endlessly. We'll explore how to use reason instead of emotion, how to write your way through mental chaos, and how to make peace with reality, even when it's not what you wanted. And finally, we'll talk about one of the hardest, most powerful truths of all, that death is always close. And that's exactly why your life, your time, your mind matters right now. Because here's the truth. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to be stuck in the mental loops. You don't have to keep second-guessing every move, or replaying the past or fearing the future. You have more power than you think, not over everything, but over the most important thing, yourself. So if you've ever felt trapped in your thoughts, if you've ever wished for peace, for clarity, for a mind that works with you instead of against you, this video is for you. Stick with me, let's clear the weeds, let's tend the garden of the mind, and let's begin. 7 Stoic techniques to stop overthinking and start living clearly. 1. Understand what's in your control. Epictetus principle. Let me ask you something. How much time have you spent worrying about what someone else thinks of you, or stressing over something that hasn't even happened yet? We all do it. You send a message, and there's no reply. Hours pass, maybe days, and your mind spins into overdrive. Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Are they mad at me? Suddenly, your thoughts are racing through a storm of assumptions. And you can't sleep. You can't focus. You feel stuck. This is the root of overthinking, trying to control what was never in your control to begin with. But 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus gave us a life-changing filter. It's simple, but it holds the power to bring peace to even the most restless minds. He said, some things are up to us, and some are not. Think about that. It's not just a nice quote. It's a compass, a mental boundary line. On one side, the things you can influence, your thoughts, your actions, your values. On the other, everything else, what people think of you, the outcome of a job interview, whether someone replies to your message, or how the world reacts. And most of us, we spend so much energy living on the wrong side of that line. We try to manage people's impressions of us. We replay conversations in our heads, hoping to change something that's already happened. We imagine every possible scenario of tomorrow's meeting as if sheer mental effort could control the outcome. But here's the truth. You don't control the result, only your role. Let me tell you a story that brings this to life. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Think about that. 27 years, locked away, stripped of freedom, isolated from his family, branded a criminal for fighting against apartheid. The world outside, completely out of his hands. The laws, the government, his fate, all beyond his control. But Mandela made a decision. He chose to control the one thing no one could take from him, his response. He learned to read. He meditated. He trained his mind, even in a tiny prison cell. And when he was finally released, he didn't seek revenge. He forgave. He rebuilt. Because he had already won the most important battle, the one inside. That's Stoicism in action. That's the spirit of Epictetus. You see, freedom doesn't start when the door opens. It starts when the mind is no longer imprisoned by what it cannot control. Even Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, arguably one of the most powerful men in the world, wrote to himself every day, reminding himself of this very truth. He had armies, advisors, wealth, but he never forgot that the only thing truly his was his mind. He once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't abstract theory to him. It was a tool for survival, because even an emperor faced heartbreak, betrayal, and loss. The storms came for him, just like they come for us. But he understood, the calmer the mind, the clearer the path. So here's the key lesson. If you want to stop overthinking, stop chasing control over things that were never yours. Instead, reclaim the energy you've been wasting. When someone doesn't reply to your message, ask yourself, did I speak kindly? Was I respectful? Did I act with integrity? If yes, then you've done your part. The rest, let it go. When you're nervous about a meeting or an interview, ask, am I prepared? Am I grounded in my values? Then step in with confidence, not because you control the outcome, but because you've mastered your role. This shift doesn't just quiet the noise, it frees your mind. Because every minute you spend trying to control the uncontrollable is a minute stolen from the one place you actually have power, the present moment. And here's what I've learned personally. The more I practice this, the lighter I feel, the clearer my decisions become. It's like cutting invisible strings that used to pull me in every direction. I stop asking, what will they think of me? And start asking, am I living in line with who I want to be? That question, not their answer, is what brings peace. So today, I want to challenge you. Draw that line. Literally, write it down. What's up to me? What's not? And next time you catch your mind spiraling, pause. Return to the side that's yours. Let go of what you cannot own and anchor yourself in what you can. Because the truth is, you don't need to control everything to be at peace. You just need to control your mind. And from there, everything else starts to fall into place. 2, focus on action, not endless speculation. Have you ever noticed how the more you think about something, the harder it becomes to actually do it? You replay a situation in your head over and over, thinking you're working it out. But hours go by, then days, and you haven't made a single move. You haven't solved anything. You've just worn yourself down. That's the trap of overthinking. It feels like progress, but it's not. It's like running on a treadmill while staring at a locked door. You're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. The Stoics understood this trap long before smartphones, social media, or endless information. They knew that the mind, left unchecked, can drift into endless speculation. And when that happens, we stop living. We start circling, analyzing, imagining, delaying. That's why Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king himself, gave us this bold reminder. Stop talking about what the good man is like and just be one. Think about that. How often do we over-prepare, over-analyze, over-plan? We say we're just trying to be ready when really we're afraid to move. Now, don't get me wrong, thoughtfulness is valuable, but overthinking, that's just hesitation in disguise. And hesitation over time becomes paralysis. Let me give you an example we all know too well. You send someone a message. Maybe it's important. Maybe it's vulnerable. Then nothing. No reply. And here's what happens. Your brain starts spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Should I follow up? Or would that make me look desperate? Are they ignoring me? Maybe I should just delete the whole conversation. And in that spiral, you do nothing. Hours pass. You check your phone 20 times. Your mind loops, but your life stays stuck. But what if you did the simpler thing? What if you just sent a kind follow-up? Nothing dramatic, no over-explaining, just, hey, just checking in. Hope all's well. And then let it go. That's action. And action, no matter how small, is what breaks the cycle of overthinking. Because here's the hard truth. You will never think your way into absolute clarity. That's not how it works. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes during it. When you take that first step, no matter how uncertain, you create movement. You shift energy. And suddenly your mind starts catching up to reality, not just fear. Look, life is messy. Things won't always go perfectly, but you don't need a perfect plan to begin. You just need a step, something small. Send the message, make the call, write the paragraph, apply for the job, say what you really mean, because doing will always teach you more than thinking ever will. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I had an idea, something I believed in deeply, a project I knew could help people, but I kept waiting, telling myself I needed the right tools, the right timing, the perfect words. Weeks turned into months. And then one day, I asked myself, what would happen if I just started? Just took one step, even if it was messy. So I did, and you know what? It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that single action created momentum that changed everything. You see, action grounds you. It pulls you out of the imaginary and into the actual. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start discovering what's possible. Because that's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to live in our heads, but to live in alignment with our values. Not to seek control over outcomes, but to focus on our input. Marcus Aurelius didn't write essays on courage and call it a day. He ruled an empire while navigating plagues, betrayal, and war. And he still reminded himself, be the example. So ask yourself, are you waiting for the perfect words? Or are you willing to speak the truth you already know? Are you stuck imagining your ideal self, or are you stepping toward becoming that person today? The Stoics would tell you this. You don't escape a maze by drawing better maps. You escape by moving your feet. And yes, it's scary to act when you're unsure, but it's even scarier to stand still while life passes you by. Because if we're honest, overthinking isn't about being smart. It's about being scared. Scared to be wrong, scared to be seen, scared to fail. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite it. So here's the takeaway. If you're caught in a mental loop, stop trying to figure it all out first. Instead, ask, what's one small thing I can do right now that's aligned with my values? Then do that. That's Stoicism. Not overthinking the future, not rewriting the past, but showing up right now and doing the next right thing. So what's that step for you? Is it a phone call, an apology, a decision you've been avoiding? Take it, because the only way to live a clear, meaningful life is to live it, not just think about it. 3, use reason over emotion. Let's be honest. How many times have you misread a situation, not because of facts, but because of feelings? Someone doesn't respond to your text, and your mind immediately jumps to, they're mad, I messed up. They don't care anymore. You receive criticism and instantly think, I'm not good enough, I've failed. We've all been there, because when emotions take over, they don't just color reality, they distort it. But here's what the Stoics discovered long ago, and what science has since confirmed. Emotions are fast, but not always accurate. They react before truth has a chance to arrive. That's why the Stoics didn't say don't feel, they said don't be ruled by your feelings, because there's a big difference between feeling something and letting that feeling drive your actions. Nowhere is that lesson clearer than in a story shared by U.S. Navy Admiral William McRaven in his book, Make Your Bed. During intense Navy SEAL training, there was a night when the recruits were forced to lie for hours in freezing mud. They were exhausted, shivering, barely holding it together. Some were on the edge of breaking, and then something unexpected happened. One trainee started singing, not because he felt joyful, but because in that moment he chose not to surrender his mind to fear and misery. Slowly others joined in. The group, stuck in the same pit of pain, began to laugh, to encourage each other, to survive. And that's the Stoic mindset in action. When the external world is chaos, your inner world can still be calm if you choose reason over reaction. Because overthinking doesn't begin with logic. It starts with emotion, worry, fear, shame. And if left unchecked, those emotions spiral into stories that aren't even true. That silence you got, it wasn't rejection. That one critical comment, it doesn't mean you're a failure. That missed opportunity, it wasn't a sign you're doomed. But unless you pause, unless you examine those thoughts, they will feel true. That's why Epictetus, the former slave turned philosopher, said, there is only one way to happiness, to stop worrying about things beyond your control. And what's the tool for doing that? Reason, a simple pause, a deep breath, a hard question. Is what I'm thinking right now actually reasonable? Not emotionally satisfying, not dramatic, but truthful. Let's break that down. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what's really happening? And how can I respond with clarity? Instead of, I failed because someone criticized me, ask, what can I learn here? And is this feedback even valid? Instead of, I feel unworthy, ask, what evidence do I have to believe that? And what would I say to a friend who felt this way? That's how you pull your mind out of the storm and into stillness. One powerful way to do that? Right. It's what Marcus Aurelius did every night. Not for anyone else, not for followers, not for show, but to wrestle with his own mind. He ruled a vast empire, faced wars, betrayals, plagues, and yet he still made time to journal. Why? Because he knew. Reason isn't automatic, it's practiced. When you put your thoughts on paper, they lose their power to control you. What seemed overwhelming in your head often looks smaller when you see it clearly. So if you're caught in overthinking right now, here's what I suggest. Sit down. Write the thought that's haunting you. Then ask, is it true? Is it useful? Is it mine to carry? Because often we're burdened by stories we never chose, beliefs planted by fear, by childhood, by the opinions of others, and it takes reason. calm, honest reasoning to uproot them. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And here's the deeper truth. You're not your emotions. You're not even your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. You are the one who chooses whether to follow them or to step back and ask for something higher, something clearer. That power, that inner space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. And that's what Stoicism is really about. Not becoming numb, but becoming clear. So next time you feel yourself spiraling, remember, you don't have to act from emotion. You can pause, reflect, reframe, and from that pause comes power. The world will always throw noise your way, but the stillness you create with reason, that's yours, and no one can take it from you. 4. How writing can help you master your mind. There's something almost sacred about putting pen to paper. In a world flooded with opinions, notifications, and noise, there's something powerful about choosing silence, choosing reflection, and simply writing things down. You see, when your mind is racing, when your emotions are swirling, when you're caught in a storm of overthinking, your thoughts feel overwhelming because they're trapped inside of you. They're tangled up with fear, judgment, imagination, and memory. But the moment you write them down, something shifts. What felt like chaos in your head begins to take shape. Words give it structure, ink gives it space, and suddenly you're not in your thoughts anymore. You're observing them. That's not just journaling, that's freedom. It's something Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, did every single day. At night, after leading armies and governing an empire, he'd sit down and write, not for others, not for history, not for fame, but for himself. He was facing war, betrayal, plagues. And yet in the middle of all that, he wrote. Why? Because writing was how he created distance from the madness. It was how he reminded himself of what truly mattered. He wasn't trying to make his thoughts look good. He was trying to see them clearly. One of his most famous lines comes from this practice. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Read that again, slowly. The pain isn't the event, it's your interpretation of it. That message you didn't get back, that comment someone made, that mistake you keep replaying, it's not the situation that's tearing you apart. It's the story you're telling yourself about it. And here's the good news. You can change the story. And writing is how you begin. When you write, you create distance. And in that distance, you gain perspective. You can look at what's bothering you and ask powerful, clarifying questions. Is this true? Is this useful? Am I letting this thought run my life? You don't have to be a great writer. This isn't about perfect grammar or poetic language. This is about honesty. Write like nobody's watching, because no one is. This is for you. And in a world that's constantly trying to fill your head with noise, from social media, the news, ads, other people's expectations, this might be the only time in your day where you hear yourself clearly. Because let's face it, we are overstimulated. Our minds are constantly on edge. And when we're overwhelmed, we lose our ability to think clearly. That's why journaling isn't just a nice habit, it's a necessary one. It's mental hygiene, emotional clarity, even, in a sense, a spiritual discipline. And I don't say that lightly. When you sit in silence with nothing but your thoughts and the truth on a blank page, that's a kind of prayer. That's a kind of meeting with your deeper self, with your conscience, with something greater. Maybe you call that God. Maybe you call it wisdom. Maybe you're just trying to get your life together. Either way, writing is a doorway to clarity. I'll tell you something I do when I feel overwhelmed, anxious, or stuck in loops of doubt. I open a journal and write down the exact thought that's bothering me. Then underneath it, I ask myself, is this thought helpful? Is this fear based on fact or just a guess? If a friend told me this, what would I say to them? Often just doing that makes the problem shrink. It's like shining a flashlight into a dark room and realizing the monster in the corner is just a coat on a chair. Writing makes your fears visible, and once you see them clearly, you can stop being controlled by them. And look, maybe you're thinking, I'm too busy to journal. But here's the truth. You're already journaling. You're already writing a story in your head every day about who you are, what's possible, what you're worth. But if you don't take time to examine it, to edit it, that story can become a prison. The Stoics knew this long before modern psychology caught up. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have, but only if it's trained. So train it, one page at a time. Start simple, just write. What am I thinking right now? Then respond, then ask, do I want this thought to guide my life? Because every time you choose clarity over confusion, truth over noise, you're reclaiming your mind. You're reminding yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the thinker. So tonight, before you scroll, before you binge another show, before the day slips away, open a notebook. Write the thought that's been on your mind. Ask, is this worth caring? And let your own wisdom answer. You might be surprised by how powerful your own voice really is. 5. Accept the present, even when it hurts. Let's be real for a second. How often do you find yourself stuck in a loop of what-ifs? What if I had said something different? What if I had taken that job? What if I hadn't made that mistake? It's like your mind grabs a moment from the past or a fear about the future and holds it hostage. You think you're analyzing, but really, you're resisting. And that resistance, that's where overthinking thrives. The Stoics had a word for how to break that cycle. They called it amor fati. It means love your fate, not just accept it, love it, embrace reality, not because it's perfect, but because it is. Now I know that might sound extreme. How are you supposed to love something like heartbreak, or losing your job, or facing a diagnosis? But here's what the Stoics meant. You don't have to love the pain. You learn to love the lesson. You don't have to love what happened, but you can choose to stop fighting it. You face it. You meet it where it is. Epictetus, who lived most of his life as a slave, said this: don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would. Rather, wish that everything happens as it actually does. Then your life will flow well. In other words, stop wishing the past were different. Stop arguing with reality. You'll never win that battle. Let me give you an example. Imagine you just lost your job. That moment hits hard, right? The first instinct is usually panic. Why me? Was it fair? What could I have done differently? Then your mind spirals. You start replaying every meeting, every email, every decision. You imagine all the worst-case futures. It's exhausting. But stop and ask the Stoic question, can this be undone? If the answer is no, then the most rational move is not to resist, but to accept. Not with defeat, but with clarity. That's not giving up. It's letting go of what's no longer yours to change, so you can focus on what still is. Because when you stop pouring energy into the past, you free it up for what matters now. And maybe that job loss becomes the push you needed to pursue what you really wanted. Maybe it's the moment that shifts your path towards something more meaningful. That's amor fati in action. The same goes for relationships. When someone walks away, it hurts. But clinging to what was, obsessing over every text, every goodbye, only deepens the pain. The Stoics wouldn't tell you to suppress the sadness. They'd say, feel it fully, and then return to what's real. This moment, this breath, this choice you have now. Because acceptance doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. When you stop resisting, you stop drowning in what can't be changed. And suddenly you begin to float again. You begin to move. You begin to see new options, new directions. And here's the deeper truth. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you respond. Character, not control, is what matters in adversity. You can't control breakups, illness, unexpected changes, but you can decide whether you become bitter or better, whether you shut down or rise up. Acceptance is the first step toward wisdom, because when you say, "This is what is," you create the mental space to ask, "Now what can I do?" Let me tell you something I've learned through pain. The present moment is the only place anything real can happen. Not yesterday, not some future that's still a fantasy, just now. And you get to choose how to show up in it. That's why the Stoics returned again and again to the present, not because they were trying to escape, but because they understood this is where your power lives. It's not easy, but it's worth it. So ask yourself, what are you still fighting that cannot be changed? What past moment are you still replaying as if you could rewrite it? And what could happen if you simply accepted reality and began again? Amor fati. Love your fate, not because you wanted it, but because you've chosen to face it. Because from that place of acceptance comes freedom, and from freedom comes strength. 6. Protect your mind. Limit what you let in. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you were truly alone with your own thoughts? No phone, no music, no scrolling, just you in silence. If that idea makes you uncomfortable, you're not alone. We live in a world of noise, a world of constant updates, endless opinions, and never-ending streams of information. Most of it fighting for your attention, your emotion, your energy. And if we're being honest, it's exhausting. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic minds in history, warned us about this centuries ago. He wrote, "The mind is our final stronghold, guard it," because he understood that the most sacred space in your life isn't your home, it's your mind. And if you don't protect that space, the world will overrun it. Today, that warning feels more relevant than ever. We wake up and reach for our phones before our feet touch the floor. We scroll through emails, headlines, outrage, comparison, bad news, worse news, strangers arguing, influencers selling, and photos that make us feel like we're falling behind. Before we've even had a sip of coffee, our mind is already flooded. No wonder we feel anxious. No wonder we can't think clearly. No wonder we're stuck in overthinking. Because overthinking isn't just about thinking too much. It's about consuming too much. Too much noise, too much drama, too many opinions on things that don't even affect your life. Here's the truth the Stoics knew. You can't control the outside world, but you can control what you allow inside your mind. You can't shut down the internet, but you can choose not to click on that clickbait headline. You can't stop the chaos, but you can choose to step away from it. That's what Stoic discipline looks like today. Not in a toga, but in a conscious decision to say, no more. I choose clarity over chaos. I choose peace over panic. I choose to limit what I let in. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Let me share something that changed my life, and maybe it'll help you too. Every day I give myself 30 minutes of silence. No screens, no news, no notifications, just breathing, or writing, or walking, just being. You'd be amazed what happens in that space. Ideas return, emotions settle, priorities realign, and suddenly the world doesn't feel so overwhelming anymore. It's like cleaning a fogged up window. You didn't even realize how blurry things had become until clarity returns. And here's the thing, it's not about shutting yourself off from the world. It's about choosing what truly matters. You don't need to know everything happening everywhere. You don't need to read every comment or check every alert. You just need to know what's affecting you and how you want to respond. Because the less you consume, the more you see. And that's not just poetic, it's practical. When your mind isn't crowded, your decisions become clearer, your conversations become deeper, and your sense of direction becomes stronger. So here's a challenge. Try going 30 minutes a day with no inputs, no phone, no TV, no podcasts, just you. And in that space, ask yourself, what thoughts are really mine? What's just noise I've picked up from someone else? What do I actually want to focus on? You don't need a silent retreat in the mountains to reconnect with your mind. You just need a pause. Because your mind isn't a dumping ground, it's a garden. And if you're not careful with what you plant, weeds will grow. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What are you letting color yours? Is it anger from someone else's rant? Fear from a headline you saw this morning? Insecurity from someone's vacation photos? Or is it calm, clarity, purpose? You get to choose. So today, I invite you, protect your mind. Start small. Mute that app. Unfollow that account. Step away from the noise and in that space, breathe. You don't need more opinions. You need more peace. And peace doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from knowing enough. Guard your mind like it's sacred, because it is. 7. Death is always close, so don't waste time thinking about it. Let me ask you something. If today were your last day, how differently would you live? Would you keep over-analyzing that message that never came? Would you still be stuck in regrets from last year? Would you keep waiting for the perfect moment to begin? See, we live like we have forever. We put things off. We overthink. We hesitate. We wait and wait and wait. But the Stoics, they didn't believe in waiting. They believed in urgency, in presence, in living like every moment could be the last, because one day it will be. They called this idea memento mori. It means, remember, you must die. Now that might sound grim at first, but to the Stoics, it wasn't about fear. It was about focus, because death isn't some distant event reserved for the old or the unlucky. It's right here. It's always close. And if you truly let that in, not in panic, but in truth, it changes everything. Seneca said, "It's not that life is short, it's that we waste a lot of it. We waste it overthinking conversations, worrying about what others think, living in imaginary futures or painful pasts, arguing over things that don't matter, and putting off what does. But when you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it." Let me share a story. On September 11th, 2001, Joe Torrillo, a firefighter from New York City, was buried alive beneath the rubble of the World Trade Center, crushed, trapped, in the dark, for hours. And in that silence, as the world collapsed around him, his mind didn't go to his job title, his bank account, or his unfinished to-do list. He thought about two things: the people he loved and the things he hadn't done yet. That's it. That moment changed him. When Joe was rescued, bloodied but alive, he was never the same again. He stopped postponing. He stopped hesitating. He started living with clarity, with purpose, with urgency. That is memento mori in real life. And that's exactly what the Stoics wanted for us. Not to obsess over death, but to let it wake us up. Marcus Aurelius said it plainly: do not act as if you are going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While it is in your power, be good. In other words, stop waiting. While you're still breathing, be who you were meant to be. Because overthinking doesn't just waste time, it wastes life. It tricks us into thinking we have more of it than we do, that we can delay decisions, that we can put off forgiveness, that we can save our dreams for someday. But someday isn't guaranteed. And that's not meant to scare you. It's meant to liberate you, because when you really feel how fragile this life is, you stop sweating the small stuff. You stop letting fear make your choices. You start doing what matters. You pick up the phone and say what needs to be said. You take the trip. You write the book. You launch the business. You tell them you love them. Because you finally understand you don't need more time. You just need to stop wasting the time you already have. So the next time you find yourself spiraling in your thoughts, caught in doubt, delay, or overthinking? Ask yourself, if this were my last day, would this thought still matter? If the answer is no, then breathe, let it go, and take a step, any step, toward what does matter. Live boldly, love deeply, act now. You don't need to control everything. You just need to remember, time is short, and you are still alive. So don't waste it. So now that we've come full circle, let's take a breath together. Overthinking isn't who you are. It's just a habit. And like any habit, it can be unlearned. You're not broken. You're just overwhelmed, like so many of us in this fast, noisy world. But the Stoics left us a path forward, a quiet, steady one. Not loud or flashy, not trending or viral, just true. 7 simple principles, 7 timeless anchors for a clearer life. 1. Know what's in your control and let go of what's not, because peace begins where control ends. 2. Focus on action, not endless guesswork. Movement clears confusion. Every small step matters. 3. Choose reason over emotion. Feel everything but act from wisdom, not fear. 4. Write things down. Get your thoughts out of your head and into the light, where truth can be seen clearly. 5. Accept the present. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. Resistance wastes energy. Acceptance unlocks it. 6. Limit what you let in. Guard your mind like sacred ground. Clarity doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing what matters. 7. And remember, death is always close, which means your life, this moment, is too precious to spend spiraling in your mind. You don't need to control everything. You don't need all the answers. You just need to see clearly. From there, peace follows. So I want to ask you, what do you overthink the most? Is it work? Relationships? Your past? Your future? Whatever it is, write it in the comments. Not just to share, but to release it. To bring it out of your head and into the open. That's how change begins, with honesty. And if this video helped you slow down, even just a little, if it brought you clarity or calm, or simply made you feel understood, then let's stay connected. Tap that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Give this video a like. It helps more people find this kind of wisdom, and share it with someone you care about. Someone who might be stuck in their own storm of overthinking. We're all walking this path together. And until the next video, stay grounded, stay clear, and remember, you don't need to control the storm. You just need to reclaim the stillness within.